This feels very precarious. Oh my God, we don't.
I'm afraid of falling, honestly. You can hear that. That works. Yeah.
Can everybody hear well, properly? Yeah. Welcome everybody to Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and thank you for coming. My name's Clare Lilley. I'm Director of Programme at Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and I've been working with Brian on the show that we have here. I'm guessing that most, if not all of you, have already seen the exhibition, both inside and outside. I hope that's the case, because we're going to talk a little bit about the show. We're going to talk a little bit about KAWS' practice, and then I'm going to open the floor up for people to talk, because I'm sure many of you have some questions that you would like to ask. And I'm going to put that there so we don't go crazy. So, hello. I thought it would be nice to start talking about the studio in Brooklyn. In a way, I think, because often when people talk about the advertisement disruptions that you were doing in the 90s, it obviously was a form of street art, but actually it was a street art that was kind of located in your studio.
Well, yeah, at that time I didn't have a studio. It was sort of like in my bedroom.
Yeah.
No, actually the first ones I was still at my parents' house, but eventually I moved to Manhattan in '96, and it was sort of, everybody assumes I did those like out on the street, but what I would do is I'd go around and sort of take ones out of areas I wasn't interested in working in, and I would just sort of collect them and paint them, at my own time in my studio. So it was just like there was sort of like a ottoman bed and a wall.
Yeah.
And we just stockpile them.
So you weren't necessarily doing one per night or something like that.
I would paint 10 of them or 6 of them, and
yeah.
I'd go out with them, and sometimes I'd put up all 5 or all 6, and sometimes I'd come back with some. One of the first times I got super rained on, and they were all just I used marsh ink, and it just had this drip in it.
But the point being that the studio has been central, really, to your practice. I mean, that's the sense you get when you go there.
Yeah, I love being in the studio. I love the studio that I'm in now is in Williamsburg. We built it for painting, basically. A lot of the sculptures are done, with different foundries, whoever I find that can kind of execute what I need. But all the paintings are done, in this very controlled environment that I've sort of dialed in over the last 10 years or whatever.
And it's almost kind of like a home as well, or at least it's an area that is
it's cozy.
Kind of a living. It's very cozy.
No, one of the things with building my own studio is, I spent so much time there. Now I'm a little bit more, domestic. I have a kid, and I leave at a certain hour. But it used to be 7 days a week. If I was awake, I was there. And I like being there. I want to make it a place where I want to be. I wake up, I want to be there. I'm not like, oh, I hate this light or I hate this thing. I try to over time just slowly dial in what I need to get done, what I need to get done.
And we've talked a bit before about how you could, there are artists like Jeff Koons and Murakami who have much, or many other artists other than those, who have really big operations. And in a way you could, but you're sort of keeping
I don't know
it
if
to a
I
scale.
could. I don't know if I could, honestly. It took me a long time. Now we have 6, and that's two are recently, so it was really just 4 forever. And it's difficult. I got right now, they probably don't have stuff to do. So, because I've been here for 2 weeks. So it's a lot of work to kind of find work for the people in the studios to do. I'm pretty hands-on, micromanaging. Maybe I need help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
someone to answer your emails. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. Then I would reply.
And you have some really sensational art by other artists on your walls. And not to kind of go into detail, but what sort of role do those pictures and sculptures have for you?
I just I enjoy having it around. I have it in my house. I have it in my studio. The studio is sort of divided into 2 sections. There's upstairs and downstairs. And upstairs I do a lot of, when I'm making paintings and drawing on the computer, I'll sit up there, and in that space it's sort of it's usually just me. It's not really anyone else. And there's a lot of drawings by artists that I like, friends, you know, people who I admire.
And are they inspiration? Do they kind of play a part in what you do?
Yeah, I like having them around. I mean, it's just good to, you know, like it's not something where I'm like, you know, doing laps around the space, studying things. But you know, if I'm in between times when you're not working or you kind of just drift off, it's nice to see stuff, and
Yeah.
it's nice to. There's one thing when you're seeing a work, you know, once, but when you're living with work and seeing it every day, and you could kind of like assess how that's impacted you or what stuck with you, like what about it might interest you continually, and it's good. It's, you know, it's because things change. They change when you change the room. They change when you change.
And last summer, when we were talking about the new paintings talking about paintings for the Longside Gallery,
Yeah.
there were a stack of brand new canvases that hadn't been touched, were still in their brown paper,
Yeah.
and they were kind of waiting for something. And did you know, when you had those canvases made, when you had them stretched, did you have a sense then of what you were going to do with them, or?
No, not at all. Honestly, I think there were 6 of them. I wound up painting 6, and I just kept one back. But there was a Alex Katz painting that I had that was that dimension. And I was just like, I just like that dimension. And I do that a lot. I'll go to shows, and I mean, it's kind of distracting for me. I'll be at like a Sigma Polk show, and I'm looking at the plaque to see like, oh, that's 16 feet by whatever. Just because it has a feeling. Like there's certain things that when I get in front of them, I feel like this is a shape I like, or this is a, you know. And this cat's painting, I was just like, oh, it's an interesting shape. It's just a little bit, you know.
Off square.
Yeah, off square in a way that I haven't worked on. So I just ordered a bunch of canvases like that shape, and they were in the room. And then, you know, I was figuring. Actually, I did have in mind to use those works here, but I had no clue what I would paint.
Yeah, and then you committed to them.
I committed to them.
Which is great. And bumping.
What were we saying?
We were talking about a survival machine. Well, I was asking you about the kind of process for making those paintings, just to give an idea of how because the paintings are incredibly meticulous and laboriously made.
You know, when I work on paintings, I tend to take a lot of imagery, like off the internet, or I'm looking at animations and taking screenshots, and I continually draw over them with Illustrator. It's a program in the computer. It's a vector-based program that, you know, so I'll stockpile. I'll have like a screen up, and it'll just have, I just always cut and paste into it. So I have hundreds of little images, and I just sort of collage pieces together. And so when I'm looking at a thing, I can see, you know, I can line up 5 paintings and make them at the same time. And once I have them in black and white, I'll go downstairs and I'll draw them out on the canvases. And then I kind of have like a little table with all, you know, I use a paint number system that it used to be Cell Animation Paint when I worked for animation. I used to take it home. And then eventually like animation paint companies went out of business, so I started working with Golden Paints to custom mix all these numbers, like colors according to numbers. So I have hundreds that I go straight out of the bottle with. So I'm not mixing.
Yeah.
So I'll sit and I'll have the paintings drawn out, and then I'll just use Q-tips and sort of pick all the colors for them. Not on the computer, but like physically when I'm looking at the scale. And, you know, so a lot of those paintings that you're seeing up there were completely resolved color-wise with little cups and Q-tips at this scale and dots.
And when I've seen those in the studio, it never looks like you've changed your mind. It always looks like...
I don't, usually.
Yeah.
I mean, rarely. Sometimes I pick a color, like we have some grayish greens or things like that I always forget they're not friendly colors. Like they'll leave marbling in the paint.
Yeah.
And it's only after we've done a whole section 3 times and haven't gotten it right, they were like, this color doesn't work, and we sort of...
Throw it.
Yeah, give it a red flag, and so that's when I change. You know, but usually I don't change. I just hope for the best.
And you're also, it was kind of fascinating to see how you were making these, I guess they were on canvas, these kind of colour, I don't know what you call them, like flakes of colour that you were then giving...
making swatches.
Yeah, for the printer.
Yeah, basically like all the prints that you see downstairs, it's the same system, and so I'll have the number system for every color in them. Like those prints downstairs are about like 40 different colors. And then I physically paint on paper and give that to the printer. When I go work with him, there's no like excuse not to get the color what it is. So it's either the color or it's not.
What was I going to say? But in the survival machine paintings, there are kind of a few new things that are going on. One is that there's a kind of a character there that you haven't explored before, or a sort of a figure. And the other is the merging black and white painting with colour for the first time. And did you kind of know that? You must have already been thinking about that before we started talking about the wall.
It's something I've been wanting to do with it for a long time. I've been working with doing these black and white abstract paintings, and at the same time working on these series of colors paintings. And I've kind of wanted to sort of cross-pollinate them and sort of like put the series to bed, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I've been working on these two different routes for a while, and I want to just step and then move on or something.
And have you put it to bed, or have you opened up?
No, well,
else?
now that I've seen these paintings, it has me thinking about a lot of stuff. But so yeah, it's just sort of figuring out how those work together.
Yeah.
Is that Jonty's phone?
That's Jonty's phone. And one of the other new pieces up in the gallery, which is something between being a sculpture and a drawing, is New Home.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that came into being?
Working with acrylic, I mean, we started, originally there's the He Eats Alone, which is the multicolor shaped acrylic. Mm. That was the first one we did for a show in 2014 on a Fraser in LA. And the other piece in the show was supposed to be for that show. And then right before we shipped it, we used the wrong solvent on it and it got thousands of cracks, like little hairline cracks, so it had to be redone. So here we are a few years later. It's a long process. We've been working on it a few years before we even got to the first one. And I wanted to try to figure out a way to push what I was doing with painting into the sculpture, like approaching sculpture in the same sort of layering way. And like even seeing that painting or that finished sculpture there, Home Alone, which is very simple. Now I'm thinking about how if we step it in and build it out thicker, how we can get more layers into it and work on it.
So you're taking the kind of the pictorial space from the painting and developing it into the Korean and the acrylic.
Yeah, because it's the same approach, but it's a different feeling. You're walking around, you're seeing through it, you're seeing yourself in it, you're seeing a room through it, and other works reflected in it. So I think I think it gives me a lot of opportunities to sort of just explore how you can kind of change a room with a work like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like it's been such a slow process that's kind of frustrating because I can't just it's not that instant. You're in the studio making a painting, you do something, you can get on to the next one real quick.
Sculpture's like that, isn't it?
Yeah, sculpture is all, everything that you see here, minimal is 6, 8, 9 months.
Yeah.
And then some of them several years. The first wooden piece we were working on for about 2 years before we actually got one finished. And it was the 10 meter, the small eye. So
why did you want to do that? Why did you want to start working in wood?
I had made this little figure with a Japanese Japanese furniture company called Karamoku, and it's the same form that I've been working with for a long time. The same sort of figurative form, but just seeing it in wood gave it a whole different warmth and feeling. So I don't know, it just seemed like something I wanted to explore. I didn't know it would be possible actually to scale up like that. And then over time we figured it out and figured out the engineering.
And you've made the big pieces with a guy he's kind of on the Belgium-Dutch border.
He's right, like he one block
right
here, and exactly.
He's Holland or
Belgium. Kind of, let's just say Belgium. He's an expert at materials, and he's done a lot of great projects with great artists.
So how did you seek him out? Did you find, because there's no one else doing work of that sort that I know of in the world? Yeah,
I just happened, it was really like a friend knew him and kind of, introduced us. I'm not quite sure how I actually met him, but I know my friend Etienne, who's a postal worker in Belgium, was one of the first people that always kind of told Ernest about my work. And when I saw what he was doing, he was doing this great work with Chamberlain and Frank Stella, and
he doesn't really, it's not a foundry you can just go and like be like, I want to make this.
Yeah.
You know, he kind of has to be in it and behind it, and we sort of partner on everything when we make it. So it took a few years to get to the point of starting, actually. We just were like, I don't know, figuring each other out.
So you started with smaller scale, and then gradually you've worked up to small eye?
Reverse.
It's,
The first thing we made together was small eye, which is
Yeah.
10 meters. And we just wanted to make it, you know, just start from sort of impossible and then make everything else easy. So, yeah. No, but then I started doing double figures, what kind of threw him for a loop.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot, you know, there's what you see, but then within the inner workings of the pieces and all the mathematics of how you have to cut the planks inside just to get it, you know, to get it around the space to CNC off. There's a lot.
And what's amazing about them, I mean, when you look inside those sculptures, they are incredibly complex. And the inside is almost as beautiful as the outside. You know, they are absolutely beautifully made. And when we were we first showed, I selected Small Eye for a show in London a couple of years ago, and then knowing how that piece could come together, because although they're really big, and in many ways very, very difficult, they're actually kind of strangely easy to put together.
It's like a giant lollipop.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if you can just picture like a lollipop sitting into a torso, head, arms, legs. It's very simple. It's just
Yeah.
it happens to be tons and tons of material.
Yeah. Tell that to the guy
Yeah.
covered in snow.
Where's the installers?
bare hands.
Don't tell us installers I said that. None of them are here tonight. They're all at the pub, I guarantee you.
But they love doing it. They love working on those works.
Yeah, I mean, they're so good. They're good,
Yeah.
and I would imagine with all the sort of challenges they had at the park that they're like happy to find a new challenge. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, they seemed up for it. They seemed, you know.
Yeah, they certainly went for it. And what's it like for you seeing, because those works have been shown around and about, some of them were in Amsterdam over the summer and various other places.
Yeah.
And what it's like for you to see them together?
I mean, it's different. I've never been in a situation where I've had so many of my works, my sculptural works, in one sight line.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting, like, you know, when I first arrived, I was doing a lot of just, like, wandering around the park and walking, and I came around from that back way, sort of, I forgot the artist's name, but where the octopus is
Yeah.
in the bridge. And just seeing, like, I was just like, oh, they're there, you know? And you just sort of get to walk across this field, and it goes from a pea into, like, this massive thing. It's nice. You know, when I'm making them one by one, and it's a big time period stretch. But seeing them together and just seeing how they sort of function together, it gives a new, you know, sort of gives a new feeling to it.
They should stay together, really, shouldn't they?
Yeah,
Here.
they should stay, yeah.
Yeah, we should keep them, but hey. But I think, is it true to say that some of those works well, it is true to say, because it's for the first time, they haven't actually been toys as a starting point? Or, yeah.
Actually, all of them.
Yeah.
Trying to think. Yeah, all of them just existed first as sculptures, whereas a lot of the stuff in the gallery alongside existed, you know, sometimes almost, you know, 5-10 years before as a toy, and then eventually was created as a sculpture.
We've talked a little bit when we've been meeting before about artists like Klaus Oldenburg and the kind of work that he was doing especially through the 60s and 70s. And I just wondered if you could say a little bit about that and what it was about Oldenburg that interested you.
I mean, just the way he sort of, you know, tackles outdoor sculpture. And I think originally what really got me into a lot of those pop artists was the editions that they were making. You know, like the editions company, Gemini.
Yeah.
I remember getting these Gemini, like, hardcover books, and it had, like, Oldenburg and Wesselmann and all these different great, you know, Rauschenberg, and just different mediums and small editions. And that's, like, when it came time to first make my toy, I was thinking more like that. I wasn't thinking, like, oh, this is great, I'm going to make this thing, and now I can make 500, but someday I'll make, you know, 50,000 or something. It was never, you know, I was always thinking of it as a sort of intimate thing that I would make and move on.
And you had a conversation with somebody recently, and he said, what's your next strategy or something like that? And have you ever had a strategy?
No. I honestly, I've never had really much of a plan. But you just can't, because you don't know, like, you know, if you meet if I met other artists, I'm looking at somebody who's kind of, like, done all these great things, I can't expect to do that,
because he's doing it, you know, and it goes the same for almost any field.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to work with you was because I see you as an artist who's really kind of seriously trying to take on the idea of the public space and what sculpture can do in a public space. I mean, is it something that's...
Did I go blank? No, I'm blank.
Yeah, you did. It's because I said the word serious.
Serious, yeah.
It
No, I
was
always liked having a dialogue with the, you know, with having works in the public and just putting them out there. I mean, this is, you know, this being a sculpture park is, you know, people come here expecting to see sculpture. So it's different than like the earlier phone booth interventions and that kind of work. But at that time, I was super hungry. Like I just wanted to get work out. You know, it was pre sort of social media. It was, you know, I just wanted to just throw, you know, it's like throwing bottles into the ocean with notes. I just wanted to put work out. And, but I like the idea of that, you know, somebody's going to work and suddenly you're interrupting their day if they do notice, you know, what you've changed about an ad or what you've kind of left out there.
And you thought that at the time when you were making graffiti as well, when you were doing the big...
Yeah, I mean,
tags.
Graffiti, it was the same thing. It was more like it was for me, it was for my peers. It was sort of like a, you know, you find yourself, you know, finding a community of people. You know, at that age, there wasn't like, it's not like I'd get together with a bunch of guys and draw, you know?
Yeah.
So it was just sort of a way of sort of having these relationships and with different kids in different boroughs. And, yeah, you create like this weird fake identity. I don't know, I guess now you have like a fake name online, but I had a fake name in spray paint.
But you were, even when you were really young, you were having this exchange of letters with kids in Europe and...
Yeah, I mean, well, I was lucky that a friend of mine, this guy that wrote 2D, had a graph magazine called Undercover. And so kids would send in letters with, you know, basically envelopes with a note and a packet of photos. And then you would just sort of agree to trade, you know, like I would write, like if there was this kid in Spain or this kid in Berlin that was sending good photos, we would just sort of have an agreement to trade. I'd be going around the Bronx, Washington Heights, taking pictures of what, you know, whatever I liked, and going to like, you know, I forgot the name of the store. It was like sort of like a Walgreens-esque type store, and just making cheap doubles. Don't cover your ears, Jonty. Of like these, you know, 5x6 photos, and just sending off packets, and then, you know, a month would go by, 2 months. And this is all like this, you know, I have envelopes like that addressed, and it's all to my mom's house.
I know, I've seen them. And what struck me was I bet a load of those kids weren't really writing any essays while they were in school, but they were writing really long letters
some
to one
people,
another.
I wasn't really big on words, but yeah, some kids would tell you, you know, hey, I'm from Boston, we're killing these freights. This is, you know, this guy's doing this, and da-da-da. And they'd include photos, and you'd get to, I mean, for me, it was great. I would get to kind of, you know, there was no option to just go to the computer and see it. So it was that, or like Tower Records would sell graffiti magazines. And there was, you know, like maybe at that time 10 or 15 in existence. So that was really like, you know, there's like a hunger and there's not really a supply.
Yeah.
So.
But I always get the feeling that you were, even from quite a young age, you were sort of looking outside of America. You were looking outside of the place that you were in.
Well, yeah, I learned about geography through graffiti, honestly.
Yeah.
That got me, when I'd get these packets, or I'd see this stuff being done in different cities. It'd be, you know, amazing pictures of like this trains in Spain just bombed. And, you know, so you see these other places, and you're kind of like, oh, I'd kind of like to check that out. I'd like to go there at one point. So my first place out of the country was to Munich for some weird graph thing, and the government paid for the ticket. Really? Which I thought was like shocking. I was like, nobody's gonna pay for anything here in Jersey City, you know? And so yeah, I got to go. I stayed with these weird kids I didn't really know, and but it was fun. It was sort of like I love traveling. I love to go to places I don't know, but I also, when I do travel, I do like to travel for work. You know, I like to go and have a purpose. Yeah. I'm not, unless it's like a proper vacation. But otherwise, I like to get in a city, and you know, it's a way of seeing a city when you go there and you meet people who are working in a field you're interested in, because you get real insight. It's not like sort of an outsider showing up at a museum. When the first time that you went to Japan, did you even know where you were going? Did you have any idea what was at the end of that? You mean like
potentially what could come.
Yeah, or even didn't you go to a town that you didn't even know?
Yeah, well, all right. So the first time I went to Japan, my friend, this guy that wrote Nezum in college, his brother traded me. I traded him a painting, a small oil painting, for a trip to Japan, and I thought I was going to Tokyo, and it turned. They were like, yeah, Ibaraki, and I was like, oh, great, and it was like. Let's just say one time I wanted to do stuff on the street at night in Tokyo, and I had to take a taxi back to their house, and it was about $120. So, I mean, at that time, that was like, great, there's half my funding.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like pig farms and totally out of Tokyo. I still got to Tokyo. We still did billboards and got everything I needed to get done. But yeah, I mean, it was just sort of like after, I mean, I kind of went there just for the, kicks of going to Japan. And then it kind of, when I got there, I realized there was a lot of things happening that showed a lot of potential, and I was just interested in it. I just wanted to, I feel like that's where creativity was happening, and I wanted to get back there. So.
And gradually, social media, and particularly Instagram, has become pretty central to what you do.
Yeah, I don't know if it's central to what I do. It's just, it's there. It exists. It's like, I live in a bubble. I work in the studio all day. I'm with my family in the studio, so it's just nice. I could, it's the first thing. I never really was big on Facebook or anything. It's the first thing that it's just sort of easy enough. It's non-committal enough that I can just go in and look at images and see what some friends are up to and upload some images, and I don't know.
And you've said a couple of times that you would hope that, particularly a show like this, would encourage a young person to kind of walk through a gallery door or across a museum doorstep.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's and the great thing about doing a show like this is somebody who comes here normally, who's coming here to see the Moors, that, they've been coming for 20 years with their family or whatever, can stumble into their lower park and be like, what, and I like cross-pollinating, with whatever I'm doing. I mean, it's why I'm so interested in doing collaborations, and it's just sort of like you have the built-in this audience, and I have whatever you call it I have, and it's great that if I can open up people to the park, and the park can open up people to my work, it's a win-win.
And why does it matter? Why do you care?
I don't know. I mean, it would be pretty lame if I just made work and sat alone home with it all. Like, I just wouldn't feel like so fulfilled.
Yeah.
It's like when I make a work, it feels, I do keep some of my work, of course, but I feel like if it's not out in the world, sort of functioning, or like, it's like a kid. Like you wouldn't want to keep your kid home with you all. You need to push them.
Yeah.
And let them figure things out. So they need to figure their stuff out. So.
I wonder if it would be a good idea to sort of open up the floor a bit, if people want to ask some questions.
Honestly, a lot of the things that I've done have kind of happened organically. And when I met Claire from doing Regent's Park and doing the sculpture park at Frieze, I got to learn more about like the history of Yorkshire. And just, the great, like, there's such a rich history of artists, and, the landscape's beautiful. And I thought, like, contextually, it puts my work in a new environment that I hasn't had the opportunity to be in. It's a learning, for me, when I see the work, it's a learning opportunity for myself, as well as getting the work in front of people.
Are you happy with the end results?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have them out there. I don't know.
I think it's amazing.
Oh, cool. No, I mean, I'm definitely happy. I don't know. I'm not, I'm not the person to be like, yeah, So, cool. Many of the works were made before the show, so it's not the composite, like the gestures of the characters isn't like me making a direct response to the park. But, I never imagined when I was doing, like I was always interested in sculpture, and I never imagined having an opportunity to make larger scale things. There's like a lot of ducks you got to get in a row in order to get to a point of making things of that scale and that sort of like, I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot to figure out.
Well, actually, I mean, people like Miro were 50 by the time they were actually even starting to make sculpture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and sculpture is such a collaborative and such an expensive and such a difficult process that it's not something that you enter into with any kind of ease. Anyway, sorry, over to you.
Yeah. No, you know, it is, it's like when, a lot of times I take whatever I make and put it back into the work, and I've been fortunate that I've been able to, you know, so say like one area of the work might not make money or something, but you know, I do something else in this other area, and you can take it and allocate it, and you just sort of think of like the whole picture of what you want to get, you know, what you want to accomplish as an artist. And so in doing the larger sculptures, it was a gradual thing, you know. It's from the first piece to that. It wasn't like yes, I'm going to do this right from day one. It's just like, you know, you make something, you see it, and you say, all right, now that's done, what can I do? And it's interesting when you're making things, you start to look at everything. Like I look at, you know, before like being in a city, I'd be like, you know, you just assume like these buildings always exist, and now it's like I start to wonder like, how big was the group of guys that had to get together to first sort of be like, let's get this thing made. Who you know, how are we going to get funding for this? Or, you know, you just start to wonder how like all these things around you are done. So I don't know if that answered anything you said, but yeah.
But I mean, actually, just to say one thing, I'm not absolutely certain I understood the first question, but the original fake sculpture up in the gallery made in 2006 that Brian made for his store in Tokyo was the first kind of full-size, or well, it was more than full-size, it's over life-size figure.
Yeah, that's true. And that, I mean, we made that just because we were making, you know, the whole shop. Which was shop, I didn't even know that was going to be, you know, it sort of started, like, original fake, I started because I wanted to design this interior with my friend Masamichi Kariyama. And I was working with this toy company, Medicom, for a while, and, you know, we've done, like, so many different things, and we're at dinner, and we're like, oh, we should do, like, a shop together. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And then they seemed really serious, and I was like, oh, man, so I recoiled. And then I brought it up again about 6 months later, and they were like, yeah, you know, we'd like to do a company together. And I was like, yeah, I'd be interested if I could design the shop with Kariyama. And they were like, yeah, no problem. And this is all very candid at a dinner. So I called Kariyama that night, and I was like, you know, you might get this phone call. I don't know. And this thing might happen. And so then it happened very quickly. You know, the shop was almost done in about 5 months. And then I realized, like, well, now I have a company, and I have to fill it. And that became like a whole nother thing. I was just thinking about the physical space and how I wanted to do that. And so that grew into me having this company for 7 years. So it's not really like, you know, like I said, I don't really have much of a plan, but things happen along the way, and you sort of seize the opportunities. No, honestly, whenever I'm making stuff, I'm as soon as it's actually come to fruition, I'm thinking about the next thing. But it's nice to see. I mean, you know, you go back and you see stuff, and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Or, you know, that one turned out all right. But yeah, it's hard. I don't judge. There's not like a piece where I'm like, oh, this is like, you know, my perfect piece or anything. You just, you know, they sort of exist as like this odd family, and at times things seem better than others.
What do you think about the materials? Because you're using different materials all the time. And
yeah.
I have to say, when the bronze came in from Los Angeles, the clean slate, which is the figure holding the child here and the one under here, I mean, you look at the quality of the cast and the paint, and it is like, I mean, I just had goosebumps looking at it. It was incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that, you know, that's the same company I was doing the fiberglass works with.
Yeah.
But, you know, as different opportunities come up and you have things for outdoors and, you know, you start to just think about what'll exist. Like I started using aluminum because I had an exhibition in Philadelphia at Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, and they had me do a sculpture. You know, I did a 10-foot sculpture on a plinth that was empty for 70 years.
Yeah.
But it was over a doorway, and we couldn't possibly put like a ton sculpture up there. Mm. So I had to figure out, you know, so it looks identical, but it's aluminum, it's lighter, and it's a little bit more manageable. And so you start to find, you know, and just in working, you find your way around materials and what's more suitable for what. And I like bronze because it seems like you can hit it with a car.
Yeah, you can do anything to bronze.
Yeah. Don't try it.
And actually, I mean, I came to your work, unlike probably most of the people in this room, through sculpture.
Yeah.
And I see, it has a very, very powerful sculptural value, and that's kind of quite a difficult thing to define, but it's about material, it's about scale, it's about balance, it's about kind of solid and void, all these things that are going on. And I think kind of almost unknown to you, there are also things that trace your work back to like Greek kouros sculptures and a whole tradition of reclining figures. And you're actually extending a trajectory which has been going for, well, certainly the last sort of 5,000 years. Did you know?
I leave that to the scholars.
I'm going to write about it.
Thank you. This is, passing through Start, I was invited to do a sculpture in Hong Kong. And I went for a site visit, and it just was like in Kowloon where the ferry let off, and there was thousands. Like they told me for the month exhibition there'd be over 1 million foot traffic past it. And I was just thinking like if I was a sculptor I'd be mortified to have to sit there for the month. So it's not really a reference to the thinker or any of art history, it's more of just like, just can't be there. And then as far as Clean Slate, that came along after I did a sculpture called Along the Way. It's the sort of two figures. And before that point, I always had this sort of dialogue where it was like one static figure and the viewer, and there was this relationship. And then I did the Along the Way, and it just sort of had a dialogue within it. And it just, I don't know, for me, it was just something interesting to see. I wasn't like looking for that when I made the sculpture, but it just opened it up and got me thinking about, creating these sort of narratives within. And that's where Clean Slate came from. Do you want to answer that?
Okay. So I guess I had actually seen some of your canvases at art fairs, and it's quite difficult to see his work in any kind of grouping because you tend to see it in bits and pieces. And I don't know which art fair it was, but in any case, I passed this canvas and I doubled back on myself because I was really surprised at how much information I got from such a tiny line. It was a black on white related to Snoopy. So I think that was probably, I can't quite remember when that was, but you would know when you were making those paintings. Yeah. And I knew your work from magazines, but that sort of was a stopping point. And then we have a really great friend in New York called Debbie Lando, who was the president of the Madison Square Gardens, which is a really amazing sculpture project. And Debbie said, well, I said to Debbie, is there any way that we could get KAWS into Free Sculpture Park? That was 2 years ago. And she sort of went about engineering it. Because it was a really big ask. You're asking for a sculpture that's 30 feet high, that takes a week to install, to be there for a week and then to go again. So, but they were, everyone was up for it. So that was the kind of beginning.
And that just started the sort of back
and that started the conversation.
Yeah. And then I came out here, I thought it was over a year ago, but...
It wasn't, it was in May last year, which seems crazy.
So I came for a site visit, and we just we took the car and drove around the grounds, and I couldn't really get my head around it when Claire was saying, well, this part we can do something here and do something here. And I was just like, it just all seemed so, like... Big. Yeah, exactly. And it grew. We kind of snuck some sculpture in at the end, too.
Yeah.
It was originally like maybe 1, possibly 2. Now
He's
6.
Terrible. He's the worst communicator. You are on the edge of your seat all the time, kind of not knowing exactly what's going to happen. And there was a point at which I just got on a plane and came to New York, and I just said, and he'd built a model. He had a model of the gallery. He had scale models of all the works. He had it all there in his head. You just weren't sharing it at that point.
Yeah.
well done anyway. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I tend to put out fires that are needing put out.
Yeah.
And that was your fire was a little bit
away.
My
fire was blazing.
Yeah.
Believe me. And I just knew. Oh my God, we keep doing this. Anyway, hey. So
next question.
Well, and the other thing is, because Brian works with people who also don't communicate, particularly one in Belgium. But, what is that if they say they're going to do something, they're going to move.
Well, we know that.
We know that now.
Yeah.
But
on our side, I know if I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Well, I was saying to them,
Yeah.
are we definitely going to have these pieces? And but the poor woman, Marita, who's on the end of the phone, is going, she just would not give a positive answer to anything because she didn't want to lie. She didn't, she's an honest woman, I guess.
I mean, honestly, with something like the acrylic piece, New Home, we were working on it still, well, after the outdoor pieces were installed.
Yeah.
It was still getting finished. The paintings we finished, a week or two before we were supposed to ship. That's right
That
on
was
time.
just before Christmas.
That's right on time.
Yeah. Well, we changed the shipping date, actually.
Oh, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I forgot that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here, at the end of the day, it's here. So.
Yeah.
I can't tell you about any of them, but yeah, I do have some stuff in the pipeline that, I'm constantly thinking when I do a show like this, I feel like I work in a certain area, and it makes me want to work in other areas, and kind of like, I don't know, I just like pushing work out in different ways, and I enjoy making product a lot. So that's a sort of, this is a place where you can come and see these big pieces, but then I also like to kind of have like this intimate dialogue where, you could be home with something, or I don't know. That's why I got into toys, and it wasn't methodical in the beginning, but I realized that, a lot of the people that are supporting me or coming to my shows now have had some of my figures for, 15 years or 16, whatever. And so it's interesting. It's like reaching people in this sort of not such a intense way. It's sort of, it's really, I don't know, I'm losing the word for it. Accessible?
Yeah,
That's
accessible.
good, So I like, I constantly try to think of, when I was younger, I didn't really go to galleries and museums much, and I would come into work through magazines and different graphics on skateboards or whatever it was, and I constantly want to make work that sort of communicates in those same sort of realms. So yes, in a long-winded answer, I do have some collaborations coming up. Yeah, no, you never feel comfortable. Like, I think it's good you don't feel comfortable. There's been different points where I felt like, oh, this is great, this is gonna jump off. It's like, yeah, and then it doesn't happen. And like when I did a show in 2000 in Manhattan, and I was like, I just met this guy who had I didn't know what working with a gallery, any of that stuff was. It was like I met someone, had a gallery. It was like my friend's father knew this guy, whatever. And I put my stuff up in his show, and like Jeff Koons came and introduced me to one of his major collectors, and I was there, I was thinking like, oh wow, this is like, shit's gonna start. And then my next show in New York was in 2008. So it was like, it's just, you can't, I feel like I'm extremely fortunate with the amount of stuff that has happened up until this point in my life. But you never know like what, when things are gonna click or when things are gonna happen. It's just sort of like, you just kind of got to push away at it, So.
But it's interesting that then you wanted the gallery representation, you wanted that platform for your work.
I didn't actually. I was invited to this group show at Sandra Gearing, and then she asked to do a show with me after that. But then at the same time I met Pearson. I mean, I did want that outlet, but when I opened Original Fake, I was just so frustrated with people kind of imposing this idea of being a commercial artist or being a fine artist.
Yeah.
And I just was, I was into a lot of artists like, Tadanori Yoko is a great example, a Japanese artist. He's in his 70s, maybe, I don't know if he's quite 80 yet, probably late 70s now. But, he would coexist in these different realms. He was doing all this painting. He's one of the top designers in Japan in the 60s. And he'd do all these great products with like Yohji Yamamoto, and it was just good stuff. And, I wanted to make this stuff. I wanted to be honest about the stuff I wanted to wake up and make.
Yeah.
So I just sort of stopped keeping track of like what the possibilities are and just started focusing on what I was doing. And yeah, slowly, in a roundabout way, it came to working with galleries and now museums at times. Like when I was doing graffiti, there was a hunger to get work out and get into the world, and I feel like now there's more opportunities have come up, and I've kind of
I've kind of grown, and I don't see it as like an evolution from. I just see it as like a shift of interests. So I don't really have that calling to go out and paint. As far as the sculptures, it baffles me when people come to see an exhibition of mine and look at a sculpture and call it street art. Like I just don't know what they're looking at. But that's maybe one of my pet peeves. I'm thinking about sculpture, like the works in the show aren't really, it's not there. I don't know. I don't see it as like having to belong to a category. When I was doing graffiti, I didn't think, when I was in college, I'd be painting all day for school and looking at Bouguereau and Sargent and Rockwell and all these different painters and just studying like the zone system and painting. So it's weird. I meet people that know me as like a toy designer, a street artist, whatever it is, and I just feel like a lot of them, the categories are useless. I enjoy work. I love to be busy. I kind of freak out when I'm not busy. But with having the stores, like, before that I was working with all these different companies, and I was always curious what it would be like to have a store and a company of my own, and now I know. So it's not, I just felt like at the end of the day I could be allocating more of my energies into a lot of different things. When you have a shop, we had, I think, about 80 wholesale accounts. There's like a certain demand you have to fulfill. And even though financially it was a great business, it was not, it's not what I want to wake up and do every day.
So is that a boredom threshold and you need to keep doing something different to stimulate?
Yeah, I like to investigate, I like to sort of be stimulated and sort of explore things. And when you're worrying about fulfilling a season of clothing, it's 130 pieces a season or something. It's not, it's like you make one pair of pants, you're great. You don't need to make 50.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just interest shift. Well, no, I mean now that I don't have that constant pull, I can jump in and do a collaboration with somebody and do a small collection and move on. It's more fun. It's unavoidable that if, when your life changes like that, it has to find its way. It must find its way into the work. But it's weird. Before I was having my daughter, I was freaking out. Like, oh my God, how's this? I couldn't even imagine having this kind of time and dealing with this. Sort of like, as a person, I was very selfish as, I'd be in the studio all the time and 7 days a week. And as soon as she came, it just fit in, and it's actually, I feel like it helped me sort of cut the fat off a lot of things.
Yeah.
You find yourself wasting a lot of time. So now it's like I'm in the studio within these hours. I'm extremely efficient when I'm there. And I don't, if I have a friend that wants to take some BS meeting, I don't do it. Like I just, you just you figure out how to allocate your time best. And then, it's a tremendous relief to have somebody in your life like that. So I'm sure it's worked its way in.
It's definitely worked its way in.
I mean, usually the places I exhibit is really posh. So, Yorkshire, I made this exception for Clare. No, I mean, whatever. It's just a different place. It's, I never really feel comfortable anywhere I go. So. It's now I'm uncomfortable in grass. Cool.
But it's been a fairly sort of calming time, I think. I think you've become.
Oh, it was great. I mean, honestly, yeah. It's when I'm back home, it's such a. Not that it's a grind, but there's a lot going on, and it's probably why I don't answer emails. But when I'm here, it's you get a lot of sort of thinking space and. Just being able to wander the park and chill out in the Terrell room and do different things. And, I don't take... It's funny, when I'm in New York, I don't get to go to museums as much. But if I'm in, Paris or Amsterdam or whatever, you make it a point to, visit the collections and see galleries and do stuff. And you get back home and you get in a routine. So it's nice to get snapped out of it. So.
And you did some drawing here. You did stuff that you've been kind of...
Yeah, did a bit of drawing.
Yeah.
We're working, for a new sculpture project.
Yeah.
So... I don't own a 3D printer, and almost every sculpture here came from a clay sculpt. But I do like 3D printers. I mean, I do like technology. I'm not against it. I just am not that savvy and haven't been able to sit down and really. I did a thing recently for this magazine called W, that we took images of Drake, and we just took them offline, and we made little 3D printers of them at different scales, and I put them all around my maquettes that I had in the studio. So, I mean, it's kind of amazing what you could do with a 3D printer. I can take anybody here and make them like be around my studio. It's pretty evil. So yeah, no, it's fascinating. I wish I had one. If anyone wants to send one to my studio, I can give you the address. So.
Did you ever imagine that you would have these? I mean, of course you can't imagine it, but you know, you've been sort of living with these characters from Bendy and Charm and Accomplice, and some others for kind of some of them nearly 20 years, I guess. Yes. Yeah,
no. I mean, I never. It's when I was doing it just sort of. When I made my first toy, I never thought I'd make a second, and there, I think it went 99 was the first toy, and 2002 was the second.
Yeah.
And the whole time, the guys in Japan were asking me, "Oh, don't you want to make something?" I was like, "I don't know what the hell I would make." I just had no calling, and then slowly it just sort of built up, and it became, I always thought like in the two-dimensional like painting and everything, and slowly sculpture built as like a real chunk of what I was doing.
Do you feel like you kind of have a relationship with those characters?
Yeah, in a way. Like I feel horrible they're out in the rain.
Do you?
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, but Small Lie looks fantastic when it's really wet.
Yeah,
it's really nice. Yeah, but you do. Do you feel a kind of, I don't know? You must feel I mean, I have felt over the last 2 weeks, just having, or 3 weeks, I guess, having the works in the gallery, I feel sort of ridiculously fond of the sculpture. It's not something I would kind of normally feel, I don't think. Well, I don't think I've ever felt it before, but there is a kind of a fondness, and I don't know, I just wondered if you sort of have internal conversations with them, or... Oh, it's too weird.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, we'll withdraw that question. Does anybody have any more questions? No? Maybe it would be just nice to end on what you're going to be doing next in terms of stuff that you can talk about. What you have planned.
Actually a project that I started before we started this project was in October I'll be doing a show at Fort Worth Modern.
Yeah. And
it's without saying the word survey, it's like sort of a survey exhibition of 20 years of work. So it's from the phone booths up until there'll be new work in the show, and about 150 pieces. And so just working my way, navigating around that, is kind of taking a good chunk of my time.
I can see that. So that includes products as well as...
Yeah, it'll include some products. We haven't figured out how to sort of make the flow of the show. I mean, there's many rooms and spaces, and we're working on a catalog for that. They can't all be as fast as Sarah, who's the ultimate catalog designer. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the projects, and then there's some different random things that'll come in between now and then.
And do you have a sense of where the sculpture might be going? I mean, I suppose I'm particularly thinking about the outdoor work. Do you have another piece that you're working on? I
do, actually. There's a project I'm doing in Switzerland in, I think, June. Is that when Basel is?
Yeah.
That there's a new sculpture that we're working on, but more wooden pieces. And basically we're taking the wood and the acrylic pieces, things that we've been working in, and just sort of exploring it more.
Yeah.
And so it's not really going to be an exhibition. It's more like a soft opening. Like we have a power plant that we're just going to put the works in and have a dinner. So that's it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everyone.